Okay, getting right to it. We have ascending and descending tracts. Of course, descending ones are motor, ascending are sensory. We only have two types of descending tracts. One is pyramidal, the other one is extrapyramidal. And by the way, we're talking about tracts, even though they're in the CNS, because that's how the brain is going to communicate with your skeletal muscles. So we have to talk about that. So back to the descending tracts. We have pyramidal tracts and we have extrapyramidal tracts. Pyramidal tracts are the main ones. These are the ones that exert primary control over your skeletal muscles. And the pyramidal ones, there are two subtypes. One is called anterior corticospinal. The other one is lateral corticospinal. And those terms have to do with the position of those tracts in the spinal cord. Look at the words corticospinal. That means that the fibers begin in the cerebral cortex, specifically the precentral gyrus, the primary motor area, and they're going to end in the spinal cord. So the first part of the word cortico is for cortex. The second part, spinal, is for the spinal cord. So that's a handy way that you can tell the difference in tract function is by the name of them. So so those are your primary tracts. Now those are your pyramidal tracts. The anterior ones control about 15% of your muscle function, with the lateral ones controlling about 85%. But this kind of varies from one person to another, which I think is very fascinating. But at any rate, the lateral ones cross over in the medulla oblongata, and the anterior ones do not. That's why most of your functioning on, say, the right side of the body is controlled by the left side of the brain because of crossing over of most of those fibers. The lateral corticospinal tract, let me start over. The extrapyramidal tracts, these exert finer control of your skeletal muscle. We have to have more than just gross control. So I'm going to pick up my water, take a drink like that. I needed primary control and I needed fine control of my movements. I needed to be able to put my hand precisely on the glass, to raise it to my mouth without it shaking, you see. So that would be fine control. We have three types of fine control or extrapyramidal tracts. They all end in spinal, of course. One is vestibulospinal. So this one begins in your vestibular apparatus or vestibular nucleus in the brain that's associated with your vestibular apparatus. And vestibular apparatus consists of regions in your inner ear that have to do with dynamic equilibrium or balance, as well as, of course, the cerebellum is another region, and a few other regions there that are going to be activated when the body senses that you're losing your balance. And so these are adjustments that occur all the time, and we're not aware of them because they happen so rapidly. But so vestibulospinal tracts then are going to send messages down to those lower motor neurons to help modulate your motion so that you don't fall off of that little curb you decided to walk on or whatever. Rubrospinal tracts come from the red nucleus. As you know, rubro means red. And we're going to look at that one here in just a moment. And then reticulospinal tracts are ones that are going to be associated with your reticular activating system. And these are mainly involved in your, in controlling the amount of muscle tone that you have on your muscles. Because, if you have too much muscle tone in your flexor muscles, then you're going to have a hard time extending. If you have too much tone in your extensor muscles, you'll have a hard time flexing, you see. So all of these functions have to become involved in ensuring that we have smooth movements of our muscles. So this is some of the information. I think I just mentioned most of this to you about the pyramidal tracts. The word decussation in the third little sentence, that just means crossing over. This is an image or a little diagram of the corticospinal tracts. The word pyramidal, by the way, has to do with the shape of the cells that are in the precentral gyrus that are controlling your skeletal muscle. So notice that tract runs from the precentral gyrus through a region called the internal capsule, and then it goes to the medulla where the fibers separate out, and the ones in the lateral corticospinal tract are going to cross over in the medulla, which is the second little slice that you see on your picture. The anterior ones are not going to cross over, and so you see them going down or projecting to various levels of the spinal cord to their lower motor neurons to exert that control of your muscles. So again, extrapyramidal tracts, we've already looked. I'm going to try something here. I'm not sure it's going to work, but I'm trying to replace one slide with another, and I want to redo it. So let's see how it goes. I want to talk about the nigrostriatal tracts. This is one of your association tracts that are found all the way totally in the brain, as opposed to projection tracts, which go from brain to spinal cord. And so the nigrostriatal tracts are very important because they help to coordinate all of these extrapyramidal tracts that are descending, that are the projection tracts. But at any rate, so the cell bodies or the somata of these nigrostriatal axons are in the substantia nigra of the midbrain. And this region, then, that's where the cell bodies are located. The axons project down to the basal nuclei. That's where the nerve or neuron terminals are located. And these release dopamine into that area. And Parkinson's disease is the biochemical defect in Parkinson's is a decrease or a lack of sufficient dopamine that's being released then into those basal nuclei. And so so this is a very important type of tract. The let's see, the Parkinson's disease is a disease that is pretty well known by most people. Many of you know that Muhammad Ali supposedly had Parkinson's. Janet Reno, who was an attorney general for President Clinton, she has Parkinson's disease. I think that Michael J. Fox of the original movie Back to the Future, he has Parkinson's disease as well. So, like I said, the etiology or the cause of Parkinson's then is a problem there, and it's actually in the substantia nigra in the cell bodies. That's where the dopamine is produced, and at any rate, the production of dopamine. It's also a problem though in the neuron terminals, but production and release of dopamine is affected in Parkinson's. So, the acetylcholine to dopamine ratio is altered, and it causes different difficulties with controlling movements. And the symptoms of Parkinson's are very many. One is rigidity. Another one is called bradykinesia, which is an abnormally slow type of movement. Another is a fine tremor. Another one is called pill rolling. And I don't want to demonstrate it to you. It would look weird, I know. But imagine putting something in your hand. I'm going to do it anyway. What the heck? I don't know if you can see my hand like right here. So the hand kind of moves like that. I'm sure you got a lot out of that. But at any rate, the pill rolling movement, they have trouble initiating movements and terminating movements. So trying to get up out of the chair and to begin walking is difficult to get started. Once they are walking real good, they have a problem stopping the motion. So sometimes they overshoot where they want to go. Cognitive function is compromised in the later stages then of Parkinson's disease. I x-rayed a man once with Parkinson's, and he felt like a board. He was so stiff. I'm sure I x-rayed a lot of people with Parkinson's, but this particular man, he just felt so stiff, and he could not comply with what I was asking him. He had so much trouble trying to position his head in the correct manner, and it was just really, really sad. And to think that it's just one little neurotransmitter that causes all that problems is just incredible to think about. So now I'm going to go ahead and end this slide and try to put it in with the original PowerPoint. We'll see how it goes. So this is another diagram of a different type, and it shows you at the top the cerebral cortex. It is controlling by way of the pyramidal corticospinal tracts. You see in red the arrow on your left. It's controlling the lower motor neurons. It is also sending messages to the thalamus, which sends a message to your red nucleus, which sends a message through your rubrospinal tract. And this one again is one of the ones that is going to exert control of your muscle movements. There's another one coming from the cerebral cortex to the basal nuclei, which again is going to control your fine control of your muscle movements. Now let's look at ascending tracts. Most ascending tracts do cross over in the medulla. The names of those, remember, one was spinocerebellar. Spinocerebellar tract begins in the spinal cord. It ends in the cerebellum. And it is informing they are informing the cerebellum of what's going on with your muscles. These are some of your proprioceptive tracts. And if the cerebellum senses that your movement is faulty or that you're about to fall and your balance is off and what have you, it will send a message back to other centers that will control your movements. The spinothalamic tracts, you ought to be able to figure these out. Spinothalamic means going from the spinal cord to the thalamus, and you remember that all of your sensory input from your special senses, no, all of your sensory input except for olfactory, goes through the thalamus before it's rerouted to the higher centers that need to be informed of this information. And so, spinothalamic tracts then are coming from all of these different regions in the periphery, such as the ear, the nose, the eye, not the nose, I'm sorry, the ear, the eye, the taste buds, and of course your general senses as well. So this is a picture that shows your ascending tracts that are going to send the sensory information. And so you have to look down at the bottom to start on this one because that's where the impulses begin. So look at the touch receptor there right in the middle of the bottom of your screen. The touch receptor is communicating with that first order axon. The message is going up through the spinal cord, and it is going to cross over in the medulla, and then it's going up to the postcentral gyrus, which is the primary sensory area, and then that's where the information is interpreted. Okay, so you have these different types of tracts coming in that are sensory, that are bringing information to the brain. These are ascending tracts. Now, the second part of this is the peripheral nervous system. And I'm going to wait on this one. I don't want this to be longer than 15 minutes, and it's about to go over that now. But I'll get back with you in the next day or so on this part of the topic. So, enjoy. Trying to sign off here.